Imagine being at your lowest, at the lowest point of your life as a teenager, and your mother telling you end your own life. Could you imagine saying something like that to your own child? Have you ever heard anything like that from a parent or a loved one? Let's talk about it in the comments. Listen to this powerful story and let me know what you think.
Join me as I listen to a coming of age story about a 16-year-old whose mother told her the right way to take herself out while she was in the hospital for attempting that very thing. Today, I'm sharing a deeply personal memory. The time my mother explained to me the way she believed I should end my own existence. I want to caution you that what I'm about to share involves sensitive subject matter, including severe emotional harm, loss, and forced medical procedures. Please care for yourself as needed. When I was 16, I found myself in a situation I never expected. I wasn't a troublesome child, but I carried an overwhelming amount of pain and uncertainty. I had this one boyfriend, and in my young, hopeful mind, I thought we'd be together forever. I got pregnant, and he assured me it wasn't possible, that he couldn't have children, and that it never happens the first time. But that was just wishful thinking. My mother knew before I did. I was tired all the time, felt sick, and when she confronted me, I denied it. I believed my boyfriend wouldn't lie, and I clung to that idea. Eventually, I went to a free clinic to confirm what my mother had suspected. Walking past protesters who shouted cruel things at anyone entering was terrifying. I was so anxious and afraid. Inside, they tested me and performed an ultrasound. I learned I was carrying a boy and that I was more than 4 months along. I felt a mix of excitement, fear, and confusion. How would I tell my parents? When I told my mother, she looked at me with such disdain, her mouth tight, nostrils flared. I had expected screaming or tears, but she simply rolled her eyes and went back to whatever she was doing. I remember thinking that was almost a relief. The next day, she said I was staying home from school because she had arranged a doctor's appointment for me. I remember touching my belly, feeling tiny flutters, silently promising my son that I would do my best. I had planned to reach out to my dad afterward. Maybe move in with him, work hard, and take care of my baby. But my mother had other plans. She drove me straight to a facility where I was forced to end my pregnancy. I pleaded with her to let me call my father. I begged as she led me past more shouting strangers. She never wavered. Inside, the doctor ignored my voice entirely and took instructions from my mother alone. Back then, minors had no say over their own bodies, and my tearful pleas meant nothing. They went through with the procedure. I cried out the entire time, feeling powerless, helpless, and shattered. The loss felt like a punishment, and I embraced the pain because I blamed myself for everything. I believed I deserved it. Afterward, my father arrived, furious that my mother hadn't reached out to him. He packed my things in minutes and took me to live with him in Alabama. There for weeks, I mourned, grieved, and wept. My dad held me, comforted me, prayed over me, took me to church, and reminded me that I was worthy of love. Still, the weight of what happened crushed my spirit. I believed I was a burden to him, and that if I removed myself from his life, I'd be doing him a favor. One day, when he went to work, I took a bottle of pills, but I didn't fade away. Instead, I got sick and had to call him. He rushed home and brought me to the hospital. Staff was not kind. They treated me with contempt, called me selfish, and said I deserved the pain of the treatment. I was given charcoal to drink and eventually had a tube inserted down my throat. The physical pain seemed fitting for the guilt I felt. Then my dad came into the room, hopeful that talking to my mother might help me. He dialed her number right there, convinced she would have encouraging words to help me heal. He must have filled her in on what happened because I didn't have to explain. He held the phone to my ear, beaming, believing she would show me kindness. Instead, her words cut deeper than any blade. She told me I was foolish, and then explained in detail how to end my own existence more effectively. She described a bathtub, hot water, a razor, each word a cruel suggestion. My mother said, "You stupid ditch. You can't even kill yourself right. The next time you want to end your life, sit in the bathtub with hot water, open your wrist as deep as you can, and put them in the water. Watch it turn red, and this time don't call anybody for help. That's how you do that." I tried not to react, so he wouldn't see the heartbreak. He looked at me, hopeful and proud, thinking my mother had said something to comfort me. So I nodded and said, "Yes, thank you," sparing him the truth. I didn't tell him what she'd actually said until decades later. He was devastated when he finally learned of her cruelty. Over time, I realized that I never truly felt safe again after that. I became hypervigilant. I needed to know where my children were every second of the day, worried that something terrible might happen to them. With my other children, I lived in constant fear, and it felt like my panic itself brought on the tragedies I was terrified of. The forced loss of my pregnancy and my mother's cruelty shaped me in complex ways. I became someone who can empathize deeply with others' pain, yet I also learned how to disconnect when an emotion overwhelms me. I'm working on that, being present with my feelings, giving them space to breathe and flow naturally, rather than shutting them down. I know I need to feel my emotions fully, to acknowledge and validate them, to let them rise and fall as they're meant to. This entire experience, my mother's rejection, the psychological harm, the feeling of having no control, taught me harsh lessons about trust, autonomy, and compassion. Over many years, I've learned that I deserve respect. I've learned to forgive without offering continued access to those who hurt me. I've learned that it is not my responsibility to please everyone around me. I can set boundaries, say no when I need to, and recognize that I have worth beyond the roles others assign to me. Through therapy and reflection, I've discovered that healing is not a single event but a process, one that doesn't follow a neat timeline. It's something I continue to do as I help others heal. I speak now as someone who has faced extraordinary pain and still stands. My therapist earns every dime. I've learned to make time for my own emotions, acknowledging when fear or distrust surfaces, and I'm working through it. I've learned to find safe people and safe spaces and to trust myself and my instincts. I've learned to stop chasing others' approval. I've learned that I can reshape my future, choose love over fear, and create a life that aligns with who I truly am. I've leaned on my faith, embraced forgiveness as a tool for freeing my heart, and found comfort in the belief that the divine is close to those who suffer. My pain doesn't define me, my healing does. I've been happily married for almost 15 years now. I'm a mother who loves fiercely, understanding how my words can impact my children. I make sure I'm careful and kind in how I speak to them and to those I love. We've made a conscious effort in parenting intentionally. We ask our kids questions, and I check in with them and I ask how they feel, because if it's important to them, it's important to us. We allow them the freedom to tell us how they feel, and we allow them to feel their feelings and express them appropriately. My youngest son is the only child at home. He's a preteen, but he is well rounded and empathetic. He is kind and firm when he needs to be. He stands up to bullies even though he's not a big child. He feels supported, heard, and loved. I know this because I asked him and he told me. I'm not assuming. I apologize to him if I hurt his feelings because pain isn't required for me to discipline him. There is no room for ego in parenting with love. Some children require different parenting styles, and that's fine, but this one is easy. My bonus daughter is a sweetheart. She's in her early 20s, and if she asked me for the moon, I'd try to get it for her. I love being a parent. I've enjoyed every stage of it, from waking up every 2 hours to nurse, all the way to now where we are navigating changes emotionally and physically. I talk to them, really talk to them. We talk about relationships and boundaries. We discuss how oxytocin is a hormone that bonds you to someone that you may have a crush on, and it's important to understand these things so you can remind yourself why you feel this way instead of making permanent decisions that based on temporary emotions. Let me know what you think about this situation. Can you imagine saying something like this to your child? Can you picture your mother saying this to you? How do you think she would have turned out without her father? Now, if you made it this far, I hope it encourages you, in whatever way you need, to reflect on your own journey. I've created a free Watch Me Heal workbook to help guide you through your own healing process with reflections, writing prompts, and reframing exercises. You can find it in the bio, comments, and description. Feel free to share this video, subscribe, and follow along as we continue this journey of growth together. This is an excerpt from Picking Up the Pieces to 100 Broken Promises by Yushimacherryburks, which can be found at every major bookstore and Amazon.com.
And check out the companion workbook to Picking Up the Pieces to 100 Broken Promises for more activities to help you heal from interpersonal trauma. You are worthy of love, respect, and healing. Thank you for watching.